I think if anything, two things when it comes, or a couple of thoughts on this whole thing. Obviously, the reason I've been able to sit out for as long as I have is because I'm not just a fighter. I'm a fighter who is a businessman and an entrepreneur and a father, and I have all these things going on. And even when I'm not fighting, I have not called the UFC one time for a paycheck while I'm doing all of this stuff. I have money coming in. I'm able to support my family. And then secondly, it also is just somewhat of a feather in my cap. If Conor was lined up against a lot of other guys, he probably would have pushed through and fought. But you don't want to fight a guy like me with any kind of injuries. And he's going to come into the next fight, whatever it is, with bumps and bruises. Obviously, he was hopping around on it and probably said, hey, there's no way I could fight, but I'm not fighting that guy. And we'll just figure it out as we go.
And obviously, when he put out that long statement, I think the last line was Chandler or not. I guess what went through your mind there? Because like you've seen locked in for him, and all of a sudden there's that Chandler or not. And I think was the big sentence that kind of fans kind of circled out.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really even think about it much. He tried to steal my tackle, and I see what he did there. To see you at the top. But man, I'm not really that worried about it. I mean, Conor can't, at this point, and I've said this publicly, I'm not letting him off the hook. For a while there, yeah, of course, he would love to come back and fight somebody other than Michael Chandler with what I bring to the octagon. I think there's no way he comes back to the UFC and doesn't fight me. So if I do pivot, if there are other names being thrown out, if there are huge fights that I can go ahead and pivot and take, whenever he is ready to come back, his road back to the UFC goes straight through Nashville, Tennessee, and Michael Chandler, and that's it.
Has the UFC floated other names to you, or has it just been Conor and that's it?
I mean, we've always been focused on Conor. Obviously, the UFC has a duty to look at other options. There's some great options out there. A lot of options that you guys have all heard. And I love fighting. I love fighting big names, big fights, big venues, big opportunities. And I've got a lot of options, but we're still focused on Conor.
Were any of those options seriously considered when they were presented after Conor pulled out?
Yeah. I mean, life is all about life change. Life is all about adapting with circumstances and time, right? And in that time when I got that phone call, I'm in phenomenal shape. I just put in 10 weeks. I was away from my family. I'm not going to say it was time wasted because it was not time wasted whatsoever. I took a shot. I signed my name on the dotted line and was doing my job. And the rug gets pulled out from underneath you, so you keep moving forward. But yeah, I mean, they were in that moment. I'm ready to fight. I was sitting on my couch down in Florida and talking to management, talking to UFC. Part of me just wants to fight. But they were considered, but here we are.
The last one for me, has a date been presented to you?
A date has not been presented to me, but we've got some dates.
Mike over here, just quickly. You mentioned, big fights. Does any part of you want to avenge any of the losses that you had in the UFC, like say like a Charles Oliveira, or is it just big names and obviously Conor at the top of the list, but probably big names outside that. But I know some fans are wondering like if you would want to avenge some of those losses.
It's a good question. I mean, honestly, my motivation for a fight or a rematch with somebody would not be to avenge a loss. I look at this sport like on any given night, any of us inside the top 5, top 10 could beat each other. Any one of us could be the world champion on any given night in our weight classes. I like that matchup with Charles. Obviously, you would allude to Gaethje, Poirier, and these guys who I've lost to. And I have a ton of respect for those guys and loved competing against them the first time and would welcome a rematch down the line because I think everybody would be intrigued by the rivalries that we have had now. I just saw Charles yesterday and we shook hands, gave a hug, and God bless you type of situation. So ton of respect for these guys, and we'll see.
And just last one for me, how do you deal with the negativity online? I know you're a pretty good guy with that, but it seems like people are pretty much like, obsessed with saying, drop the ball, and there's a lot of like sort of different things online that people have said to you. How do you deal with all that?
There's moments where I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe these guys are right, but most of the time they aren't. There's just not enough actual information out there, and it's all a matter of opinion, especially in 2024 with social media. I mean, if anything, if you read between the lines of the negative comments, it's not that people, obviously the haters are gonna hate, right? But so many people just want to see me fight. I take it as a compliment when people talk about the layoff, people talk about me not being inside the octagon, because go sit in any one of these arenas on any Saturday night, any given Saturday night, whether it's a fight night or it's a pay-per-view, when I step inside the octagon, there's just a different feel, there's a different speed, there's a different amount of violence that happens. So I take it as a compliment, because I am a desired individual to watch in this sport, and I put butts in seats. So that's the way that I would take it, and I'm running my own race with blinders on. I'm not worried about what anybody else is thinking.
Michael in the middle. You said that, it's been floated that Conor would be ready either August or September. If it's September, then that puts it at the event at the Sphere. It's about 10 weeks from now. You've talked about having other things going on. You're a father and you're a businessman. How disruptive is it for you to spend another 10 weeks in a camp, which basically is a possibility that you may have a fight lined up?
I think it's never a disruption. I mean, I just because I have things going on outside of the octagon doesn't mean that fighting in the UFC is my number one job and my sole purpose on this earth while I'm young enough to do it and healthy enough to do it. Spear would be great. Like you said, it's 10 weeks away. I'm not a doctor, but I know a pinky toe doesn't take too long to heal. That would be massive. It sounds to me like it's going to be a one and done type of event. Dana has touted it as the biggest event in UFC history, and it may never be done before. And if you want to do the numbers that they want to do, it seems as though this fight between myself and Conor would fit the bill. I am not the one to make those decisions, but the UFC knows I always have my work boots on, and I'm ready to go tomorrow if they want to go.
I'm not fighting you, but I did break my pinky toe twice last year.
Oh my God. So how long does it take to recover?
I got on 6-inch heels.
Oh, see? We're good. We're good. Conor's wearing slippers at Bellator fights, so he's the Bellator tick.
I know you've accomplished a lot of different things across different platforms and organizations, but would a potential win against Conor McGregor be the most feel-good moment in your career, given how long he's been in this game?
Yeah, I think, at the very onset of this process, that size of a fight with that amount of eyeballs, that's what we're striving to as mixed martial artists. We get into the sport to be the best and to be on the biggest stages, under the brightest lights, on the biggest platforms, and that checks all boxes. But now, especially with the storyline, with the intrigue, waiting in the wings, the build-up, the marination of this entire thing, yeah, I think it would be. It's going to be very satisfying when I make true on my word to show up whenever the next day is and knock him out. It was going to be the second round, and now he lit a fire round. He's probably going to be the first round.
We brought up Dustin Poirier there a few minutes ago. We may or may not know if he's going to come back after that Islam fight. So if that indeed was his last fight, what do you make of his career and how was it like checking out?
Yeah, I mean, Dustin is, I love seeing the love that he has gotten over these last couple weeks, because you don't really know what you got until it's gone, right? So, in this sport that's very fickle, and the fans are with you one week and aren't with you the next week. That man has been doing this since he was a teenager and fought all these times in the UFC. He fought for world titles, and he's revered by many. So, hats off to him. If this is his retirement and moving on to the second chapter of his life. And it was an honor to share the octagon with him. Dustin and I aren't the best of friends. I think there's a little bit of bad taste in his mouth for me, and maybe a little bit for him. But I wish him nothing but the best.
Michael, over here, how tough is it for you to be here tonight? And how tough do you think it'll be as the main event approaches to be sitting in the crowd instead of the cage?
I think as an athlete, you get really good at compartmentalizing things. I can honestly say it really hasn't been very hard. I mean, every now and then, more than anything, is International Fight Week, and I have taken pictures with, shaking their hands, and met over 1,000 fans this weekend, and every single one of them talking about the flights that they took, where they came from, the tickets that they bought. They all came here to watch me fight Conor. So obviously I'm constantly reminded of it. But as an athlete, you get really good at compartmentalizing it, and I don't think it has affected me as much as most people would think it has. It's just the way the world goes, man. It's just the way life is. You get knocked down, you get let down, and the true measure of a man is how he stands under circumstances like this.
I guess when we do hear the next day, every fan is going to yell, right? It's not going to happen. It's going to blow at some point. It's not going to come about. How do you go through camp knowing, like, any day I can call it, it's not going to happen? Like, I just have to train like it actually is going to happen. How do you kind of keep that mentality?
It's what I've done since I was 14 years old. There is no certainties. I mean, I have thrown myself into the fire every single day since I was 14 years old in hand-to-hand combat, watching teammate after teammate fall to injury, fall to sickness, get transferred, get kicked out of school, get in car accidents, have family members pass away, like all of these different things. We brave the unknown every single day, and it gets lost on so many people who criticize us for what we do and how much we throw ourselves into the fire every single day. Every single practice could be my last. Not just in mixed martial arts, but with two capable arms and two capable legs, this is what we do. And that's why everybody shows up to these arenas every single weekend and watches us on pay-per-view, or they show up in person. So I just put one foot in front of the other, and I do exactly what I've done since I was 14 years old. And truthfully, people can criticize what I have done and how I have handled this, and the decisions that I have made or not made. But the way that I have gone about this is a blueprint for how people can or should be handling the circumstances that they have to go through in life. And if I have to be that guy who falls on that sword, and I have to be that guy who climbs that hill, that's the hill I'm going to keep on climbing until this fight gets booked.
And it's been, you mentioned it's been a year and a half of your life. It could potentially be 2 years, you know, if you're waiting for another date. If it never happens, are you okay with that, with your career?
Absolutely. Is it gonna be a little bit of a letdown? Yeah, but I'm not in control of this. You're not in control of this. Not just my UFC career, but my entire life. We're not in control. So, would I look at it and say, okay, maybe that was wasted time, but maybe it wasn't, you know? I've done a lot of growing over the last year and a half. It's been really enjoyable, a lot of fun. Yeah, no, I don't think it's gonna be a letdown. And maybe that's me protecting myself from the letdown and just not really thinking about it. Just like you said, asking about the question about going through training camp, waiting for that phone call. I'm not gonna wait for the phone call. I'm not gonna wait for this fight to fall through. I'm just gonna keep on moving forward.
Question over here, to your left. Do you see yourself fighting for the BMF title before your career is over again?
I think it's all time and circumstance. You know, obviously, I think it's public knowledge at this point that Max's name was floated out there in these last couple of weeks. I have a ton of respect for Max Holloway, not just because he is a bad mofo, but he dubbed it the blessed man forever. You know, and Max is the epitome of a guy who says, "Hey, I am the guy who will stand in the middle of an octagon, point to the center, and throw hands until one of us goes unconscious." But also, I'm a good dude. So I got a ton of respect for him. I would love to compete against him. I guess it's up to the court of public opinion whether or not I am a BMF caliber guy. I have my opinions. I think I am, and I would love to share the octagon with Max at some point in my career.
Well, you know, the fight with Conor obviously didn't happen at 303. Do you feel like it's a blessing in disguise? Because obviously things happen for a reason. And you know, can you talk to me a little bit about your faith through this like 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, my life has been a constant up and down with if a bad thing happens to you, but a good thing comes from it, was it really a bad thing? And I think that is one of the storylines of this whole booking and falling apart and fake date back in December and a fake date back in October and all the different. This fight's been talked about and rumored for just about every month of the 12-month calendar at some point over the last year and a half. But I've enjoyed being the guy who gets the darts thrown at him and just keeps on moving forward. Because the way that I react and the way that I respond says so much more about me than it does the words on social media or the words that are written in the media. And like I said, I'm running my own race. And watch it all work out, and watch it all work out in a spectacular fashion. And I'm not going to say I told you so. I'm just going to keep on moving forward, and you guys can say I told you so for me.
And did you see Eddie Alvarez, his tweet? He was like, "I want to save the day after Conor pulled out." Did you see that?
I think I did. I mean, obviously, Eddie and I have a little bit of history. And I got a ton of respect for Eddie. He's one of the good ones in the sport, and one of the most entertaining guys that we've seen grace the octagon or any cage around the world. You never know what's going to happen. It was interesting. Obviously, Eddie is not signed with the UFC, but as I said, keep the options open, but we know what the number one option is.
You mentioned obviously names like Max Holloway and the dates of September and October, but have you given yourself like a timeline that if it gets to a certain point, they will start to accept maybe a fight with someone like that?
I think we'll know a lot in the next week or so. I think we'll know a lot in the next week or two, how some things are going to play out. Once again, time and circumstance. Everything changes with time and circumstance. I think I've gotten that question over the last year. Over the last year, timeline, hey, is there a certain date? When do you pull the plug? When do you, insert catchphrase here? And I haven't really thought about it, but I know that some information is going to be coming my way very soon, and we'll figure it out.
And do you have any regrets about waiting so long and not taking the fight first and then probably waiting? Is there any regrets?
No regrets, because I still say I had enough reassurances behind the scenes, conversations that you guys will never hear about, assurances that you guys have never heard or will have heard about. There's so much going on behind the scenes that is not public knowledge. And once again, I've never been offered another opponent throughout the entire process. Had I, then I would have had decisions to make. But this is the fight to make. It's Chandler versus McGregor. And so I don't have any regrets. But it makes a lot of sense why people would ask that question, or why people would be surprised that I would have no regrets.
Hey Mike, is ring rust a concern for when you do get back in the octagon, regardless of whether it's against Conor or anyone else?
No, I truly believe that I've been aging backwards for about the last 5 years. I'm 38 years old. I think that surprises a lot of people. As I just said, it's not just words when I say this was the best camp that I have had. Felt great. I honestly think the funny thing is, time off helped me recover my body, but it also, I think it broke some bad habits that I had. Bad habits that a lot of you guys could probably point to in the UFC runs thus far for me. Those habits were not there because I took a little bit of time off, pulled myself out of the sport for the better part of a year, and then got back into camp, and all of a sudden I felt like a new fighter. So ring rust is not a concern of mine. I mean, I think fighting Conor is different than fighting anybody else when it comes to the size of the event, the aura of the event. So whether I've been off, 2 months or 12 months or 22 months, it's going to be a different fight no matter what, because of what he brings to the octagon, or the eyeballs and the feeling inside the octagon.
One quick question. I've never heard of hanging toe syndrome. Is that
Is it true?
fact in your
Are you
head?
Googling it? Are you Googling it?
No, I wondered, did you Google
I did
when you
Google
looked
it.
up the severity?
I looked at my wife. I said, "Hey, sweetie, isn't there a thing where people's pinky toe doesn't touch the ground?" She's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." She's a doctor. She's like, "I don't really know what you're talking about." Maybe it's not an actual real medical term, but I Googled it, and I think it's called hanging toe syndrome. Right? Well, he's got it.
Also known as floppy toe.
Floppy toe. All right. So I think it's my brother or somebody. I've definitely been around some people before where their pinky toe doesn't touch the ground, and it's not a deformity or anything. It's completely normal. It's fine. But it was just kind of a joke that I made. And, as I said, I think you saw my tweet right after. I mean, no hard feelings. My heart is full. I'll see you soon. That's how it is. That man's putting his life on the line, training every single day, just like I am. And whether he should not have, or whether I would have still fought without it or not, it's neither here nor there. Thank you guys, appreciate it.
I was wondering whose camera that was.
All right.
How'd you get such a good view on that on the iPhone?